You guys have been booed each of the last 2 home games. Obviously, you're not used to that. How do you handle that?
Are you supposed to lose sleep over it?
Now, back to Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game.
Yes, Klay. The answer is yes. You are supposed to lose sleep over that. I'm not saying lose a whole night's sleep. I'm not saying toss and turn for hours, but I don't know about you, Mark, but I'm in a relationship. I'm married. And if things are not great, if I have a disagreement with my wife, for example, and, we go to bed and maybe it's not resolved, I lose sleep over it. I don't lose an entire night's sleep over it, but I lose sleep over it. You and I have been together on the air for 2 and some years.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of instances where you and I have had disagreements that were my fault. And I'm not afraid to admit it. And we've left the show, and it wasn't necessarily the best feeling. And I've gone to bed, and I've lost sleep over it. And fortunately for me and my upbringing, I know how to try to make things right. And fortunately, I work with a guy who's willing to accept apologies and accept somebody who can come to him and say, and we've made things right. And we haven't had them carry over for weeks and weeks and months, but I have lost sleep over it. So it's okay, Klay, to lose sleep over something like this. So yes, Klay, you're supposed to lose sleep over it, my friend.
Is narcolepsy the one where you fall asleep all the time?
Correct.
Okay. So
I get that usually 2 to 6.
That's why.
Monday through Friday. Cha-ching. Cash me out one time. Anyway, you were saying.
That's why I haven't lost sleep over any of our arguments, because nothing can keep me awake.
No, seriously.
Nothing can keep me awake when we get to a certain hour of the night.
Well, you got 4 jobs and 3 kids, and so when you are not moving or talking, I'm sure you fall asleep.
Well, last night was one of those nights. Lovely Christie's oldest daughter turned 17 yesterday, and so we went out to dinner, and your boy had an old-fashioned.
One drink?
You know me, just a
night.
Well, it's a 1 drink minimum. It's also a 1 drink maximum.
Totally.
But it's Wednesday. I'm not going out and doing right on a Wednesday. But I had an old fashioned. We just moved. The kids are going back to school. Here we go. We're ramping up the busy season. The Niners are about to start their playoff run. My class at Cal Poly just started. There's no rest. I'm not asking for sympathy. I want none. I deserve none. Point is, it was one of those nights, because usually you put the older ones are up later than me.
Sure.
But you put the little guy to bed, and that's when I get a bunch of stuff done. Last night was one of those nights, and I blame it on the old-fashioned.
Of course.
Which was delicious.
Blame it on the Thank you, Jamie.
It just got to 9:30, and I'm like, I'm worthless.
It was over?
So I'm not going to even try.
Warriors are down 128-91.
No, game was over. Remember, early start.
Good point.
Right, early start. I scroll. I do what
Early
I do.
finish.
I'm like, check it out. What's everybody saying? Okay. And it's one of those where you're sitting on the couch looking at the phone, and when you start dropping the phone because you're falling asleep.
Right.
Mid-read. So worthless last night. So very well rested today and ready for this conversation. So let's have it. You heard again right there what Klay said about the booing. Here's what Steph said about it.
There's nothing to really cheer about, so opposite of cheering is booing. Might as well. I don't take it any certain type of way. Honestly, I'm booing myself, booing our team in my head because of the way we're playing. So, it is what it is. Fans are going to react the way that they want. It's our job to, give them something to cheer about. We have not done that.
Steph makes it sound like a nothing burger. Klay makes it sound like it's offensive. But I would argue that there's a third thing that actually is what matters here. Klay and Steph's feelings, while we care, are not what matters in the big picture. In the big picture, do you want to know who I want to ask about the booing? I don't want to ask Steph.
No.
And I don't want to ask Klay.
I know who you want to ask.
I want to ask Joe, because that is what matters.
Can I read from Tim Kawakami in The Athletic last night?
Who joins us in just over a half hour.
Third sentence. First sentence was, cat calls rained down from several Chase Center sections, period. The Warriors looked more lost and listless tough with a lisp,
Yep.
than at any other point of this dwindling dynasty. Third sentence. Owner Joe Lacob bolted from his front row seat the instant the buzzer sounded and speed walked off the court after another blowout loss. He bolted from his front row seat and speed walked off the court. You think that he was happy about the boos that rained down? Not upon him this time, but upon his team?
Right.
I mean,
Entertainment entity.
half empty at the buzzer, and this team's getting booed.
Entertainment entity.
Right.
Every boo to that man equals dollars, and dollars will spur action. And so that's how we arrive at this from Shams and FanDuel TV.
The mindset in Golden State right now is everyone but Steph Curry is on the table. That's their mindset. Now, realistically, there's an asterisk, right? Like Klay Thompson, would they want to keep him long-term and keep him in Golden State? I think that's been their hope. They have not been able to reach a contract extension with him. We've talked about it. And Draymond Green just got back from an extension. Those have been their three core guys in the front office. They're big fans of Jonathan Kuminga, big fans of Brandon Podziemski. They're big fans of Trace Jackson Davis. But Wiggins and everyone else on that roster except Steph Curry has to be in play for this team. They're going to be looking to make moves.
The tough part is, if we know this, the other teams know that. They know their value is so low right now. If you're Andrew Wiggins, if you're Draymond, if you're Klay, so like, what can you even get for them?
The problem also is like, you want to make moves, you want to be aggressive, but they also don't want, from what I'm told, they don't want to take long-term money back. You don't want to take another massive contract back. So you think about a guy like Zach LaVine,
Can't do it.
who's making 3 years, he's got almost $140 million after this season. And honestly, hanging over all this is Steve Kerr's contract status as well. He's an expiring contract. There's no sign of a new deal as of right now for him either.
Wow.
And so this Warriors team, they're teetering right now. As we're just under a month until the trade deadline, I think they will be active. Everyone but Steph Curry has to be in play.
Okay, so that is why I refer to last night as rock bottom. I'm not even saying that those sentiments suddenly came up out of nowhere last night in the third quarter when that game officially got out of hand. I'm sure that this has been months, if not even a year in the making with regard to this sentiment that everybody is on the table. But I tell you what, we've arrived at a spot where even those like me who have been beyond stubborn with support of the big three, and you hear at the beginning of what he said, it's still not likely that Klay or Draymond is traded. But I will sit here today and freely admit, I don't know if you want to hear I was wrong, because I don't even think there's no final answer yet. I think the way that I've been looking at this, it's time for an adjustment on it. And the best way that I could put it into words is this. I absolutely still hope that they stay, but I no longer feel like I can have an issue if they don't.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone can have an issue if they don't, and I wonder how fans feel about the Klay piece at 888-957-9570, because last night became a bit of a turning point for me in terms of the Klay piece, and there have been a lot of pieces of evidence that have stacked up. This is not to say that I won't forever love Klay Thompson, 4 titles, unbelievable memories, a splash brother, but it feels to me like he wants, until I hear differently, it feels like he wants to be somewhere else. It feels like he wants to do something other than this. And I think that the Warriors want to do something other than this as well, not just pertaining to Klay. And it's interesting what Shams said, and you played about a 90-second bite, but halfway through when he said, everybody but Steph Curry is on the table, and then he mentioned Andrew Wiggins by name. Wiggins was the first name he mentioned after the fact that everyone is on the table. And you look at last night's lineup, last night that Evan called, and I loved it, and I'm going to steal it, but I'm giving him credit, so it's not theft. He called it the white flag lineup, which is when you wave the white flag. You had Wiggins and Kuminga playing together. And Wiggins was on the court during, and we're watching it right now, they're replaying it, fourth quarter, Warriors down 32, I don't like their chances. Wiggins was on the court during the white flag lineup. Kevon wasn't. Steph and Klay weren't, for sure. And you had Moody, and I think you had Guy Santos and Kuminga and Wiggins. And That to me is very telling about how they feel about Andrew Wiggins right now.
No doubt. I'm sure they'd love to give up Andrew Wiggins. However, what the crew there said to Shams also stands. Great. That's wonderful that everyone's on the table. What does that mean? Nobody wants them. Nobody wants them unless you'll take their junk too. And the Warriors don't want to do that. So fancy. So let me get this straight, Warriors. You'd like to get rid of your bad contracts.
Yeah.
You'd like to get rid of some age. You'd like to gain financial flexibility and not take any long-term money back in return.
And get good players.
And you'd also like to stay relevant right now. Cool trick. Let me see how you do that.
Totally.
Because all the other teams are going to be like, we're not helping you do that. Why would we help you do that? No. They're going to get a whole lot of no's everywhere they call.
From them, dog?
Yes.
It depends on what you want to attach. So if you look at your current roster, and let's just say everyone's on the table but Steph Curry. Let's take Shams' report as fact. So if you are another team, what's the most attractive thing about the Warriors? Well, it's Kuminga. The Warriors probably don't want to trade him. And it is... what would be the next most attractive thing? An expiring Chris Paul? An expiring Klay?
Expiring's not that attractive. Expiring is handy. Like young piece that I want on my team. I think people like Moses Moody, like not centerpiece of deal.
Right.
I think Moses Moody is attractive. I think Brandon Pajemski is attractive. I think Shams still doesn't know how to pronounce his name. That's 0 for 2. That's 0 for 2. You might be able to play shortstop for the Giants. You're 0 for 2.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a 4.
He got closer, but he called him Pazemski. There is a Z in there, but you're not going to pronounce it.
He called him Pazemski?
Pazemski.
Okay.
I don't want to play the whole thing again.
No, we could add that. I'm sure Grandy's already isolated
spotlight
it.
that Pazemski that Shams gave us.
Add it to our
Take
long
your time.
list of...
We got a long day ahead.
No, that's become one of my favorite bits, all the mispronunciations. It's a mispronunciation sensation is what it is.
Sure is.
Of the young kid's name. But I think if you're looking at deals, you're looking at an expiring with a youngster. So it's Chris Paul and Moody.
And Kuminga.
It's Klay Thompson and Pajemski. If you're going to do a deal and you want to get rid of, like you said, an expiring deal or age, you're going to have to throw in a youngster or a pick or both.
But the funny thing is what do the Warriors want in return? They want expiring deals. Well, you could argue it's like you already have that.
Right.
You have Chris Paul and Klay Thompson. That's $73 million right there.
Or you want a contract that is somewhat controlled for a player who is better than what his contract would indicate.
Yeah, I think Wiggins and the young player is the trade that you're probably going to see. Because that could be pitched somewhere. Wiggins is a commitment now, but it's not crazy. It's not over the top in terms of money, 24, 25 a year. And it's only for a few more years. And he's still in his 20s. So our team's like, gosh, maybe that fresh start revives him.
Right.
And we get the 19 points per game guy to show up again. And if we could get a Kuminga or a Moody or whatever with him, okay, maybe there's a conversation there. And that also helps the Warriors free money up. Because think about it. If you got 73 coming off the books for Klay and Chris, you turn Wiggins into something that is expiring. Well, now you got $100 million coming off the books. So I get that the Warriors are going to try to be active. I am not convinced that they will be that active because someone needs to tango with them.
True.
And what they have to offer is not as attractive as its name value would suggest.
Depends on what you're going to actually offer. Because if you're going to offer Kuminga or Moody or Pajowski, the Poughkeepsie kid, however you want to say it, I think that there's value in those deals, and you've got future picks that you can offer. But are you looking at this team and this trade deadline and thinking, let's get a piece that's going to help us now? Or is it, let's just start to turn our roster over so we have flexibility come June to make something happen for next year? Because I don't know if you can make any deal right now that would bring in a player that would make you good enough now for it to matter.
I wouldn't think so.
Right.
I mean, but then again, everyone but Steph. Well, is Steph going to just stand by and be like, sure, just blow everything up and make it a new 3-year project? And I'll sit here and hold everyone's hand to help them along the way for the end of my career. Does that sound fun? Steph was asked about the trade deadline. Here's his response.
We have a standard. It's pretty evident that if things stay the same, that's a definition of insanity, right? Keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So as players and what we can do, we have to control our effort, our focus, competitiveness, control the things that we can on the court. Like every NBA season, every organization, that stuff works itself out, and you can't allow yourself to get distracted by that, because whether you're at the top of the standings or the bottom, there's always rumors swirling, there's always conversations, and it's just a part of the business. And until anything happens, you can't get caught up in it because it robs you of your opportunity to play good basketball. That's kind of where we're at.
Another perfect answer, but by the same time, it doesn't really answer, I know, the question that's in the back of our minds, because we can't ask it yet because it's still a hypothetical. But the question we want to ask Steph Curry is, would you be okay with this? And what does that mean for you and the remainder of your career? That's the question we want to ask. It's a hypothetical. He won't answer it.
Right.
So we can't even ask it yet.
Well, you can ask it when it all comes to pass, if it's at the deadline or at the end of the year, or heck, maybe they decide they bring everyone back next year and they try to run it back. I mean, that's possible, right?
Not everyone. No, it's not.
Not Chris Paul.
Yeah.
Draymond's under contract. Wiggins under contract. Yeah. They're all under contract except Klay. So if Klay decides to sign for what was reportedly offered and he comes back, well, then you run it back. And I don't think Warrior fans want that, and I guarantee you Steph doesn't want that.
Well, and again, this is the moment that we're having this conversation. 2 very embarrassing losses. Prior to that, it was a team that, while one game under 500, wasn't playing like this. It's not like they were going out there and embarrassing themselves. The last 2 games, they've gone out there and they've embarrassed themselves. Let that sink in. They've embarrassed. Joe Lacob, that fast walk was because he's embarrassed. You booed him. You booed his product.
You've lost 6 of 8.
Yeah.
And you lost to Denver on Christmas, and that was a good game effort. You lost to Miami. I was there. You lost by 12. It felt like you lost by 20 to 25.
Sure.
And you lost to Dallas. You gave up $132. You beat Orlando. Hey, nice win. Gritty. Gutsy little home win. You lost to Dallas. You gave up 132. You gave up 130 to Denver, 133 to Toronto, 141 to New Orleans.
But Denver didn't feel that way because that was a huge lead the whole game that collapsed in the last 5 minutes.
Right, but still.
So you didn't walk out of there going, you embarrassed yourselves. You're ticked. You're like, you completely gagged that, but you didn't embarrass yourselves. These last 2 games, they haven't even been able to get to the 5-minute mark of the first quarter without the game being over.
Steph talked about effort and competitiveness in that soundbite you just played. And, you look at last night, and I think Steph would even look in the mirror and talk about effort and competitiveness. And I don't know if Steph's not given the same effort, but he's not been playing well. And you look at his shooting percentage. Last night he had 1 rebound in 25 minutes. It feels more like a team-wide issue about effort and competitiveness, and you're on the precipice now of slipping into a spot where you can't recover.
Well, effort is always an interesting thing to discuss because, again, we talk about effort when you're losing, and it can also mask itself as an excuse. It's like, oh, well, we're actually still really good. We're just not trying. Well, maybe you're trying your butt off, and you're just this far away from the other teams in the league. This week you are. That's 2 games in a row. And New Orleans is a solid team.
Yeah.
Toronto's a joke. And you went out there and looked the exact same in both games. You couldn't even stay on the floor. Let's go to Alex in Alameda. We'd love to take your calls. We'll continue to do that as we move into the 3 o'clock hour. Tim Kawakami at 3:15. Hi, Alex. What are you doing?
Hey, how's it going, guys? I just wanted to comment about the Klay comments in the post-game interview last night.
Go for it.
Honestly, we can all agree his comments were a little bit harsh, but at the same time, I've been to a lot of the games this season, and I think the atmosphere there is just really lacking. Like, if the fans are there not showing any energy, sitting down, it's completely different from the vibe at Oracle, honestly, in my opinion.
But Alex, whose responsibility is that?
No, totally. They have to bring the excitement. We're paying good money to see them. But I see a huge difference from the people that are going to the games back from when it was at Oracle.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, and Alex,
I think you're onto something, Alex.
I mean,
for sure.
that comes with the territory. To be honest with you, this will sound weird because Candlestick has had its moments where it was dead, but we heard that when Oracle opened.
We did.
Pac Bell Park, whatever it was called back then.
And when they won, it was one of the great ballparks in America, and now they're not winning, and people are bored and not showing up.
It's more expensive, it's more corporate, it's larger. So, yes, are you going to lose a little bit of the noise that happened in Oakland? There's no doubt about it. But the environment will be fine if they're good.
Right, and currently they're not good, and they don't give you a lot to cheer about, but the whole thing about the booing, that did hit me a little bit last night as kind of a Chase Center phenomenon. I don't remember a lot of booing at Oracle, even in the 90s and the 00s when they stunk.
No, it was a good, Well, we had a different bar. They were being held.
It was the bar.
They were.
We were at the bar.
Yeah, very different bar for the Warriors back then than there is now. So, yes, it's also a product of success.